Governor, Senator, welcome and good to see you.
Well, it's great to be with you, JP and David, and all of your Coastal Virginia Chamber members who might be on. So congratulations as you launch the Coastal Virginia Chamber. And I think what you're saying is very true. You know, our country aspires to be a meritocracy. And JP, you and I got to be good friends because we love sports. We also like good policy. But
Sure.
I think the reason people like sports, and it's the way I grew up on the teams that I played on and the teams my father coached, all those players were from different states, some from Tennessee, some from Texas, some from Pennsylvania. They're from all over, different races, different religions, different ethnicities. None of that mattered. And that's, you're on a level playing field. And what we should aspire to in our society is that we're a meritocracy, like in sports, where everyone, regardless of their background, their gender, their orientation, have an equal opportunity to compete and succeed on a level playing field. And so that's something that I've always cared about, is trying to make Virginia and our country more competitive for more investment and jobs, which is obviously one of the mission statements of Coastal Virginia's Chamber of Commerce.
Well, you've always said, Governor, the country does not guarantee equal results, but equal opportunities.
Right.
Because there was sometimes I was a starting quarterback, a receiver, a player, and there was other times I was on the second, third squad, but the coach gave each of us the ample opportunity.
Equal opportunities, not equal outcomes.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't watch a race where everyone's holding hands at the finish line. Somebody wins. There's a scoreboard. You don't guess what the score is of a basketball game. You know, someone wins or loses. That's one of the things you learn from sports. You get knocked down, you get back up. You don't brood over your mistakes. You learn from them and try to work to improve. And that's what we should aspire to in our state and our country.
We're going to go, Governor, we're going to get too far down the road because I got some other questions asked about the Redskins and college football and what have you. But you have been appointed or selected this Coronavirus Recovery Commission that the Heritage Foundation put together. And we certainly want to talk to you about that. But I mean, the first question would be, Vice President Pence is in charge of the White House Coronavirus Task Force. So could you please differentiate those and then tell us what your commission's about?
Yeah, we actually work with the Vice President. He's spoken to our commission, as have leaders from the National Association of Manufacturers, pharmaceutical manufacturers, Secretary of Labor Scalia, and others. And so what we've put, it's 17 commissioners from all over the country, from J.C. Watts from Oklahoma, and Bill Frist, and people of diverse backgrounds and races, and small business owners, Noe Landini, who's got Landini Brothers up in Alexandria. And so we put together the best ideas for the states, for the members of Congress, for the executive branch in Washington, including the president, on how to handle this. And our goal is to make sure we're protecting lives and livelihoods. And we've come up with well over 200 recommendations. Some of them, for example, a lot of people are grousing about the extent of powers of the governor of Virginia. One of our recommendations is that state legislators ought to review and possibly revise the statutory grants of emergency powers to governors in light of some of these responses to COVID-19. North Carolina, across the line, their governor doesn't have the same powers as is accorded to the governor of Virginia. The other things that are needed is we need to stockpile more supplies of personal protective equipment and tests. So this pandemic's not over, but it's going to recur again, whether it's this one or another one. And we need to be better prepared and have those stockpiles of equipment to protect the frontline workers more available right off the bat. And that's important. Now, as we recover, the other thing is a lot of businesses, small, medium, and large, are worried about liability. And the state legislators and Congress ought to pass some liability protection for businesses who make a good faith effort to follow guidelines so they're not getting hit with lawsuits. And then I think the most important, I think unifying recommendation of all is that we have figured out or found out that we are so dependent and vulnerable, dangerously so, to medicines, pharmaceutical agents, and this protective equipment from, let's say, adverse sources, China in particular.
Right.
Heck, you wouldn't want to feed your dog food.
Antibiotics, I guess 90%
We're
of
ingesting
antibiotics.
pharmaceuticals from China. And so several of our recommendations are to make sure that the United States is a much more attractive and competitive place to manufacture, to make these pharmaceuticals, the pharmaceutical agents and medicines and the equipment. That's good for American jobs. It's good for our national health security. And never again should we be in a situation where we are so literally vulnerable to a country that, if you don't want to call them adverse, they're certainly unreliable. And
at one time, Governor, one second again. Those of you that are just joining us, we have former Governor and Senator George Allen on, a good friend of your chamber, Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce. Dave Scalamero here with me, and we're going to continue talking to him about the Coronavirus Recovery Commission. You talked about China, and I agree. We wouldn't want to feed our dogs dog food from there. There's been policy that some legislators in Washington have brought up to ban us importing any pharmaceutical products, or somehow putting tariffs or something. You know more about that, being a senator, than I do.
Yeah, I don't think putting tariffs on us. Look, a tariff's a tax. And at this point, we aren't self-sufficient. You've heard me, JP, for many years talk about American energy independence.
Right.
And thanks to the innovation of hydraulic fracking and horizontal and directional drilling, and the blessings of our plentiful energy resources, we are number one in the world when it comes to energy resources. Now, there's regulations that some are putting on that would want to keep it in the ground. But that's important for our competitiveness. It's important for our national security. The same applies to health security, but to take an analogy to that is that before we had our energy independence and all the natural gas that we have and oil, and obviously coal, which is used somewhat primarily for steel making these days. But the point is we did have to import oil, whether it's from Canada or Saudi Arabia or other countries, until we had that independence. Now we're exporting oil and natural gas, and obviously from our ports in Virginia, exporting coal as well around the world. So I think at this point, it's not a good idea to say that we're not going to import. The reason, one problem though with China is they don't have the same regulations. I don't have great confidence that they have the efficacy that in the pharmaceutical agents that may be adulterated, it may be counterfeit, it may be diluted. And so we're in a situation right now that, some states are having to import PPE from China. Since we didn't have it. Now, a lot of companies, a lot of manufacturers have repurposed what they're doing. And, you have these auto manufacturers not building Tahoes, but they're building ventilators. And other companies are making masks and gowns and gloves and so forth. But at this point, I think it would, as much as I want to have things made in the USA, the way to do it is not by having tariffs and inflicting really a harm on us, but rather let's move as quickly as possible to make sure we have the right tax policies, the right regulatory policies, the right incentives to get these pharmaceutical manufacturing plants here in the United States. There's a good gentleman, Frank Gupton, who lives in Virginia Beach, who has a company called Flow, FHLOW, that uses continuous chemical manufacturing approach. And it's a much more efficient, less wasteful way of making pharmaceutical agents. In fact, it's been proven great in that his Medicines for All use this manufacturing process to produce antiviral agents to be used in Africa. And they needed it in Africa to stop HIV/AIDS, and it saved literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives. And so that sort of process, and he works with VCU and the Biotech Research Park in Richmond. So there are ideas, and we just need to make sure we make sure that the research, the development, the manufacturing is done here in the United States of America. And at one time, Puerto Rico was the place. They had special tax privileges, so to speak, as part of the United States as a territory, and those were taken off. And so all that pharmaceutical work that was being done in Puerto Rico went offshore, went to China, went to India, went elsewhere. Point is, let's get it back here in the United States of America. And I guarantee you that can be a really great rallying issue or reform for Republicans, Democrats, liberal, conservative, whatever. People want to make sure that we have our medicines here and stockpile them so that it's
and more than just pharmaceuticals, right? Other industries we need to bring back the production.
Well, yeah. But by the way, David, you being a CPA, some of the things that have been done recently has made our country much more competitive. The federal tax laws for corporation taxation, we're the worst in the world, highest, nearly 40%. Now we're better than average. You combine that with the regulatory reforms and the production of natural gas, we have so many manufacturers of chemicals, plastics, fertilizers, glass, and metals coming to the United States because their biggest cost is feedstock, natural gas. And so we have an abundant, reliable, and a very affordable supply of natural gas. And so there's literally tens and tens of billions of dollars being invested by companies that are US-based, international ones as well, in the United States because of our great supply of natural gas, which is their biggest cost of production.
I have to jump in again with Governor George Allen, Senator George Allen, longtime friend of mine in the chambers with Dave Scalmero here. We have roughly 10 minutes left. I want to get back to the coronavirus recovery commission that he is on, and we're going to put that on our website so that you can look at it. It's 114 pages. I reviewed a good chunk of it. There's 5 phases. I want you to, we're in phase 3, but because of the recent uptick, Governor, in several states, Florida, Texas, Arizona, that some of the states are going back to phase 1, and we're not even looking at phase 4 yet. And the nursing home recommendation you guys made. Obviously, we know that's where the vast majority of the deaths happened, if I'm not mistaken.
That's where Governor DeSantis was so successful.
Excuse me again, David?
That's where Governor DeSantis was so successful in immediately moving people, isolating the vulnerable people in the nursing homes.
You're right, David. And JP, you take Virginia, for example. I don't know what the latest numbers were, but it's around 60% of the deaths in Virginia were in long-term care facilities, nursing home, assisted living. And I think that the states that have led, I think like Tennessee and Texas and Florida and Georgia, Oklahoma and others, they opened up more quickly than Virginia, which was very, very halting in Virginia. For example, I don't understand in Virginia why the governor said you can't have amplified music on the beach. I don't think a radio transmits the disease with it. And I have a lot of friends in Southwest Virginia and Bristol, that's where I started off professionally, where Bristol, Tennessee, across the state line, the double yellow line across the street, they see stores and shops and restaurants open and they're shut down. And I have friends on both sides. And one friend from Tennessee said, well, the businesses and folks here in Tennessee really appreciate the governor of Virginia. The Virginians are going across the line. So, I think every governor tried to do the best they could, but they need to look at the facts. And the facts are that all those projections were wrong and exaggerated. Our hospitals have not been overrun in Virginia. Now you got
that was the purpose of the lockdown, wasn't it? The key part.
Right. And I think social distancing is here to stay for a long, long time. And washing your hands and sanitation and disinfecting of businesses and so forth. But the idea that, and we've learned a lot in the last several months from this, and what we need to do is protect the most vulnerable. The most vulnerable are those over age 70, those who have underlying conditions, that may be lung problems, emphysema, diabetes, those in nursing homes. Those are the folks that need to be protected. Those under the age of 20, there's no one who's died in Virginia under age 20, and I think maybe 3 who are in their 20s. Now, the shutting down of, say, bars that they've done in Texas and other states, bars just by the nature of bars, you're not going there to be distant from people. You're talking louder, the music's blaring, and folks are congregating. So there's a logic in that one, and places where they cannot provide that sort of space or distancing. And those kind of places, it is important that I don't see how they're going to be able to handle the distancing aspects. But the entire society and our entire economy should not be shut down. The idea, the arrogance of saying some businesses are essential and some are non-essential. Heck, they were shutting down hospitals and medical facilities. They're furloughed people in
dentist offices.
Dentist offices and others, and who's not getting tested for cancer or various treatments because of that. And so there was, I think, an overreaction, too much of a shutdown and lockdown, and free people naturally want to be uncaged, and the same with businesses. So the criteria should be, can you come up, can you deliver that service or sell your products in a way that people can be distant from one another? And if you can meet that criteria, fine. I think bars are going to have a very difficult time meeting that criteria. And that's where you're seeing a resurgence, is that younger people who go to bars, they don't necessarily die. They may get mildly or somewhat sick, but they're not dying. But they could be passing it on to people who are vulnerable. Mm-hmm. But notice that Florida and Texas and Arizona are not shutting everything down. They're doing it in a smart, data-driven, logical way.
And a couple of counties at a time, not the whole state. Dade County and I guess Broward counties, maybe even Palm Beach, but not the whole state.
Exactly. And that was one of our recommendations, is you ought to do this on a county by county basis. Manhattan is not the same, and Manhattan or New York City is not the same as Sioux City. And it's not the same as Oklahoma City. And even in Virginia, again, the western part of the state hardly had any cases whatsoever. And our governor said, well, I don't want to be picking winners or losers. So he made the whole state losers. Right. And then he finally opened up, and then Richmond and the commissars in Northern Virginia wanted to stay locked down even longer. And it's just so difficult. One of the business guys who talked to us, small business owners, in one of our hearings with our Coronavirus Recovery Commission said, I've never worked harder for so little. Just trying to figure out how to comply. And it's this is a government decreed recession. Our goal is to make sure going forward that the response of locking down our economy is never again the decree and reaction of government. There needs to be a way, and there are ways, of making sure we have the supplies, the medicines, the protection, and especially protect those who are clearly most vulnerable, but let everyone else work more safely and get back to work. But there's going to be changes. You're going to see this with your Coastal Virginia Chamber. I think distance learning is going to be here to some extent, but I think in business, teleworking is going to be more of the, it won't be so odd. I think it's going to be more prevalent. And I think people are still going to want to keep their distances. And I think businesses are going to have to make sure they're clear, clean, and disinfected, just because you got half the population that's very, very risk adverse and paranoid about this disease. There's people who say until a vaccine is developed, they don't want to go out.
Some of the schools that have shut down. I think Harvard just announced that they're shutting down until 2021. But we only have a couple minutes or so.
Look,
How
this is beauty, by the way, this is the beauty of our country, is that every state's different, and people will learn from, say, Purdue. Purdue's not shutting down. They have great leadership there. And so someone may want to be like those people in Harvard. Others will want to learn from Purdue and others who are opening up. And Harvard's got so much money in an endowment, it probably doesn't matter to them.
Right.
Liberty University, hasn't Liberty University been open for months?
Yeah.
And
yeah, they said this is going to be a disaster, and it was not a disaster. Right. So it got absolutely no coverage in the media.
Do you think, Governor, most schools are going to open accordingly, and it looks like we're going to play football, because obviously we can't play football if the schools aren't open. So I guess Harvard's not going to have a team of the California schools. But what do you think? We got college ball?
I don't know. I'm more confident that high school football will be here. College football with California, say Southern Cal with their mayor of Los Angeles, it may be hard for UCLA and Southern Cal to play. Harvard and the Ivy League, they don't make the revenue from football that other schools do for paying for their athletics, which is not as big a deal in the Ivy League. So they're not a model for much of anything, as far as I'm concerned. But I think college, they have to open the colleges if they're going to have football. The hypocrisy would just be too obvious if they have, the football teams are playing, but everyone's taking online courses from home. And I also think that students and the parents aren't going to be wanting to pay high tuition to take classes online. So
I don't see how that's going to be fair. Doing classes online and they're still being asked to pay $45,000 a year in tuitions. That makes absolutely no sense.
I agree with you, JP.
Well, we have 1 minute left. By the way, a lot of people don't know, here in the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce with Governor George Allen, in the minute we have left. Welcome to Virginia Beach. You've been here since Christmas, roughly, first of the year.
Yeah, we really like it. We've made our fare Fexit or no Vexit. And the taxes are about 15% less. Gasoline's 10 to 20 cents a gallon less. Automobile insurance for us is over $500 a year less. Health insurance, the difference was $1,800 to $1,100 a month. And it's the cost of living is less. Yeah,
we're the safest city of our size in the country.
Yep. There's more freedom-loving people, and you got a beach, and we're really, really happy to be living the life in Virginia.
Welcome to Virginia Beach.
We're glad you're here.
You know what? The thing, David, welcome to Virginia Beach. Even when we're getting our water and sewer hookup, with municipal folks in Virginia Beach, even the bureaucrats would say, welcome to Virginia Beach. It's just a very friendly place, and I appreciate it. We're still fighting with the commissars in Fairfax till yesterday with some of those people. So
Governor George Allen, we're going to have you back. You're always welcome here, and it's always good to see you back here in town again. I can't wait to bump into you in the store or the bar.
No, we'll throw elbows.
We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for being with us.
Adios. Great with you.